All right, everybody, what's going on from WODprep? This is Coach Nelson here. I'm here with Logan Thomas, bubble semifinal athlete, along with event winner of Metcon Rush, pro qualifier for Fittest of the Coast, amongst a long list of other accolades. Logan, how are we doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. For those of you who don't know, Logan is one of my training partners, and we brought her on today to talk a little bit about our WODprep weightlifting calculator. Logan is kind of the expert in the room in terms of weightlifting amongst all of us. Her numbers are pretty crazy, but can get some good information from them. So we're going to take a look at the calculator. If you purchase our WODprep weightlifting course and upgrade to the version with the group, you get a one-on-one meeting, just like we kind of do here, where we're going to break down her lifts in terms of her numbers, how it relates to her calculator, how to kind of read through the calculator, and how that can kind of inform her training moving forward. Logan, you excited?
I'm pumped. Let's get to it.
Sweet. So before we get going with the calculator, tell us just a little bit about like your background with like lifting in CrossFit. For those of you who don't know Logan, she burst onto the scene about 2 years ago, and really, I think compared to most CrossFit athletes in their journey, picked up the weightlifting component of it very, very quickly and started putting up some high numbers. So Logan, give us a little background for that.
Yeah, so like Nelson said, I've been doing CrossFit for about 3 years, but I didn't really get
Solid.
competitive. Well, I didn't really get competitive with it until about 2 years ago. But before that, I have a background in athletics. I was a collegiate softball player for 4 years. And so with that kind of background, like very familiar with the weight room, very familiar with kind of conventional benching, squatting, deadlifting, that sort of thing. So I kind of had the foundation when I moved over to CrossFit, where I already like had a very foundational basis for strength. And so I really picked up on kind of once I started learning the technique behind the snatch and the clean and jerk, it was relatively easy, I think, compared to some others to kind of translate that strength into high Olympic lifting numbers. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean
cool.
high Olympic lifting numbers and high powerlifting numbers.
Right.
But so with that, we'll go ahead and take a look at the calculator and see what it can tell us. Looking at this calculator, so I mean, first things first, I think when you and your coach, or when you just, if you sign up for the free lifting calculator, take a look at this, you'll see a lot of things in red, a lot of things in green, and it's important to know what that means. There is the video walkthrough right here that you can click on for the lifting calculator. Definitely give yourself an opportunity to watch that to understand a little bit of how it works, but we'll talk about it and delve it a little bit into it here. So first, taking a look at Logan's numbers. These are obviously like rough numbers. When you're filling this out yourself, you want numbers that are relatively recent. I would say within the last year, maybe 2 years at the most, depending on if it's like a really true PR. But so yeah, so 325 back squat, 215 power clean, 260 squat clean, 235, which is very impressive, 235 clean and jerk, 255 split jerk, 165 power snatch, and a 205 snatch, which I know is a recent PR hit in competition, which won you the event. Looking at this, we can very clearly see that in relation to her back squat numbers, her squatting numbers are very, very solid. So 100%, 100%. So right on the dot for the squat clean and the snatch. I mean, Logan, I think it's pretty fair to say that you enjoy like the squatting aspect and have no issue getting under a bar, yeah?
I do, yes.
Yeah, awesome. So I mean, definitely something to see there. And then if we're looking at the clean and jerk, like, pretty close to that, like, we're seeing, to that actual squat clean. It's a little bit off of that actual clean and jerk compared to what that target projected is. So we can then, get some information on that we're probably a little bit more jerk limited than we are clean limited, which we can see in the fact that the split jerk is a little lighter than the actual squat clean. And when those two get together, so Logan, like, where do you find yourself either feeling really confident or needing to grow in terms of the squat clean isolated and the split jerk isolated, and when the two get put together in the clean and jerk?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously I have a pretty solid squat clean. And like you said, my split jerk is pretty close for all intents and purposes. We're like pretty close there. When it comes to the split jerk itself, it's more of just a comfort thing. I'm just a lot more comfortable with the front squat than I am the shoulder to overhead movement. So the jerk has been something that my coach and I have really just focused on and just developing strength and comfort in that overhead position. So a little bit off there, but pretty close. Now, when it comes to the clean and jerk combined, just from my experience, I think it's more of like a strength endurance component almost, where it's like I can grit through just about any clean, but then all of a sudden, if I don't have fresh legs going into the jerk, I struggle with it a lot more. And that's kind of more of a technique thing almost as well, where I start to kind of doubt my ability to really like get that bar up overhead. And I kind of compensate for that by trying to like press myself back away from it. So 235 for that clean and jerk is like obviously not representative of my max squat clean or my max split jerk, but that's just kind of where I've gotten stuck, where when I combine the clean with the jerk, that seems to be where I start to back out of it and start missing lifts in front of me.
And for all of you people watching, yes, someone who can squat clean 260 can doubt themselves when it comes to another component of a lift. So if you're ever feeling that same kind of component, understand that happens to everybody at every level. But yeah, I mean, really good insight there, right? I mean, there's a lot of components that go into that, like the strength endurance, like you said, the bracing aspect of it. And then just like the confidence, like I know that I'm someone that I usually never have any issue getting it to my shoulders. Getting it overhead is a different story. And I know that there are plenty of people where they don't know if they're going to get it to their shoulders, but once they do, there's no issue going overhead. So it's just kind of understanding which issue we got there and how to build on that. So yes, I mean, really awesome there. And then I think just obviously the biggest thing, looking at that power snatch compared to that snatch, I mean, that's a really high level snatch in the sport. Power snatch, like obviously leaves a little bit more desired. You want to speak a little bit into like your journey of how you were able to recognize that, if you were able to recognize that, and then leading into that, what does your training maybe look like to try to shorten that gap a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the power snatch and the power clean both, I've really just historically struggled with strength in those power positions. I'm someone where I can either get the weight into basically a muscle clean or a muscle snatch, or I just ride it right down into the bottom of the squat. Nelson, you know this because we train together, but I'm very mobile, and so I really don't have any trouble kind of hanging out in the bottom of a front squat or the bottom of an overhead squat. And so it's really just been a struggle and a challenge just developing the strength in that kind of in between range of motion where I'm learning to catch a power clean, catch a power snatch in, like a three-quarter squat or a half
Right.
squat or really just above parallel. And so that's something that we've been aware of. To work on that, I've been doing a lot of things like box squats, pause power cleans, pause power snatches, just everything to kind of reinforce how to develop and maintain tension in that kind of like deeper at parallel, just above parallel kind of mark. And so honestly, the things you see here, like the 215 power clean, the 250 or the 165 power snatch, like those were honestly really big wins for me.
Yeah, no,
For a
awesome.
while,
Sure.
I would literally hit the line where it'd be like, as soon as I couldn't catch it in like basically just a mild dip, I was just riding it to the bottom of the squat. So.
And something very interesting to add on here too, right, is that kind of where that limitation happens. Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I'm pretty sure I've seen you hit 155 for like a power snatch for a good chunk of reps, right?
Yeah, so I've
Yeah.
hit 155 for 8. I'm on a journey
Right.
to get it for 10. And I've actually hit 165 for 3 before. So it's
Yeah.
not like I
Right.
can
So
cycle my max power snatch.
sure. Yes. I mean, that's definitely something that we can like take a look at, right? So for all of you who are also looking at the calculator, this is a bit more of a unique situation in terms of where Logan is at. Because yeah, if we look at the calculator, it says based on your lifting PRs, it's recommended that we focus on technique, right? And technique can be a broad range of things, which is why it's really important for you guys to get that upgrade to join the group or get that add-on to join the group so that way you can have this one-on-one call so we can really discuss this, right? Because if I'm looking at Logan's numbers and understanding her kind of lifting profile. Technique is important here, obviously. But a lot of this is going to be building, that power position, which is technique for sure, but more drilling that, you know, pull and drilling that receiving position, which yeah, we can definitely classify into technique, but not necessarily technique as we might view it as, oh, the bar is super far away from us, so we need to work on that. Or there's a giant hole in like our front squat and we need to see like mobility wise for something in that area. So yeah, definitely something to where that one-on-one call super valuable to where we can really get into the nitty-gritty of what are our numbers at, where should they be, and why aren't they there. So yes, I mean, Logan, I know you're doing a lot of work like we talked about to hit any of these things. Do you feel, seeing this kind of presented in front of you, that this kind of gives you any more insight into where maybe things need to go, where you and your coach kind of need to shift things maybe, or like, kind of give you some motivation to hit like a 185 power snatch tomorrow morning?
I would love to hit a 185 power snatch tomorrow morning, believe me. Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is super useful. I think one thing that this really highlights to me is just, I mean, obviously, like I know that I'm a strength biased athlete. Like I like to lift heavy. And that's something that I kind of will just write off as saying like, oh, yep, I'm good, got that, checked the box. Obviously, there's always things to work on, but I think just seeing like the reds and greens next to each other, it kind of highlights that like hey, there's still pretty significant room for improvement in a lot of these areas. And just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you can't continue to improve on it. And then also understanding like I definitely fall into the trap of liking to chase numbers, especially in things that I'm good at. So like yeah, I hit that 205 snatch. But now I'm kind of like, okay, well like, where's 215 coming?
Hmm.
But this kind of calls out that, hey, like there are some other areas that are probably more worthwhile to focus on, and you might get like more significant payoff from focusing on some of those things that we talked about. Putting more emphasis into developing the power snatch, developing the power clean, understanding that all of those things are going to contribute towards your top end strength overall. But hey, like maybe you don't need to chase those areas that are already in the green.
Yeah, and I think that's some really good insight there, right? Is that specifically in your situation where it's a like power output in those power lifts, building your power clean and your squat snatch or your power snatch are not going to hinder your ability to squat snatch and squat clean. In fact, if you were to be able to do a 185, 190 power snatch, you're probably like, especially in your case where you're pretty mobile and you have no issue going into the bottom of receiving position, like your pull is just going to be stronger. So you're probably going to increase your snatch by working on these positions, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good thing to bring up in terms of really easy getting distracted by a number, especially a number that you're already really good at, and then kind of putting off those other things like on the back burner, where in reality, if you work on those things, it's only going to make those other movements better. So I mean, I think that's a really good thing to highlight there. Well, awesome. I
I
mean,
also think, can I say one more thing?
yeah, go for it.
I also think looking at it like directly in the context of the sport of CrossFit, I think understanding, especially with the way that certain workouts have been trending, like it's not necessarily all about your top end strength anymore. Like it's
Mm.
great to have a max squat clean, it's great to have a max squat snatch on the occasions where you're able to kind of pull those out. But I feel like more and more frequently we're seeing like your ability to cycle like moderate heavy weights and being able to do that in like a strong power position is so important. Or with something like a max clean or like a max jerk, like how often do we just see like, hey, let's just hit a max split jerk, right? Like so often it's like a max clean and jerk or cycling a split jerk for reps or something like, or not necessarily split jerk, but like cycling a
Yeah,
shoulder
well, I
to
mean, I
rep.
think that was a games workout, right? It was like
Yeah.
running into maybe it was
Yeah,
pull.
run, shuttle, run, whatever, run into cycling shoulder to overheads.
Yeah.
So something like this, right, where we talked about like my clean and jerk, like why does it suffer? It suffers because of that like leg endurance and confidence in the shoulder to overhead. Great to have like a high max split jerk, but with kind of how it connects to the sport of CrossFit, like maybe not something that you need to work on in comparison to some of like the lower but more repeatable numbers.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's some definitely some good tidbits of information there regarding like competing at a really high level too. So sweet, Logan. Well, when you guys catch Logan competing on the semifinal, if there is a semifinal, and CrossFit Games floor, and she hits that 215 snatch and 190 power snatch, she's using the WODprep weightlifting calculator. So she can have that to thank. But Logan, appreciate you for coming on. Obviously, this is yours to use, and appreciate you for letting us take a dive into who you are as a lifter.
Yeah, thanks for working through this with me. It's super valuable. I appreciate it.